Ladies and gentlemen, the BMNR news is coming in faster than I can present it, but I'm going to try my best. First up, Ethereum continues to climb up now, as of the time of recording this video, above 4450, which is quite exciting for BMNR stock. And BMNR is actually moving faster than Ethereum is, increasing that market net asset value, or MNAV. Now, that's not always the case. Just yesterday, Bitmine increased by 1.7%, while Ethereum was up over 4.6% in that same time frame. I took the liberty of acquiring some Bitmine during that time, or BMNR, because that MNAV constantly fluctuates. So whenever it starts to lower, it actually is potentially a better buying opportunity. Then, the market might correct itself if they know that Bitmine's going to do exactly what they always do, which is acquire more Ethereum that should end up going up and increase their total holdings. Now, I showed this slide on my last BMNR video, but ever since Ethereum has gone up $300 per token, that's actually allowed them to increase their book value by nearly $700 to $800 million, just because they continue to stack on more and more Ethereum. Now, for every dollar that Ethereum goes up, it goes up by the amount of tokens that they end up holding. So they have 2.65 million ETH on their book. So they would increase their book size by $2.6 million for every dollar that ETH goes up. But that also increases the amount of annual yield that they would get from staking it by roughly $80,000. But it's only $80,000 today because that's the amount of ETH that they actually hold. Okay. Currently, they're at about $354 million if they were to stake their Ethereum at this current time, at this current dollar amount of ETH. For every dollar it goes up, that would add an additional $80,000 or so. That's another way that they can actually bring not just revenue onto the platform, but immediately go down to net income because there's no expenses to stake that ETH. So the more and more ETH that they end up having in this blue line, these are all the digital asset treasuries, or DATs. You can see that Bitmine has been able to accumulate more and more ETH over time. If they begin staking that ETH, that's only going to increase their total net income, which, if Ethereum keeps climbing and they keep stacking on more and more ETH, this will actually increase their net asset value. Now, here's the problem, okay? In the last time that they announced that they had acquired even more Ethereum, they did quite the dilution this time. So unlike other times where they have increased the amount of shares over time, this was quite a big step up to 280 million shares outstanding, a much higher ramp up in the total amount of shares outstanding than the rest of their competitors. Whenever that happens, that's actually lowering the net asset value per share of Bitmine. Okay. It's not that this hasn't happened before. We've seen lots of dips, but it does require that Ethereum continue to climb to bring up that total net asset value per share. That's what will allow the actual stock of BMNR to go from 55 to 65 to 100, 200, etc. Now, there's a lot of philosophy around this, whether or not MNAV needs to be above 1 times in order to dilute. And if it's below 1 times MNAV, then you go and you buy back shares, because at that point, your equity is worth more than new Bitcoin, because you already have an existing book of Bitcoin that is worth more than the Bitcoin that you have on your balance sheet. So it's a big game where they're trying to balance out that equity right now. Because of this latest dilution, which they also have, $400+ million in cash and other investments that bring it up to like 600 million. If they do end up betting a lot of that on ETH going forward, and then ETH climbs, all of this will look like a great benefit. The additional share dilution is only going to benefit them even more if Ethereum climbs. But while they're diluting and while ETH is dipping, it does look bad in the short term. But Ethereum is not standing still. First up, the DATs, the digital asset treasuries, are buying up more Ethereum than what is being issued versus burnt and everything. So the total new ETH issuance is roughly 1/7 the amount that these new DATs have acquired ETH, increasing the share price of Ethereum or token price of Ethereum, and actually sort of disbalancing that supply versus demand. You're lowering the amount of outstanding supply. But that's not the only thing. Finance is moving on chain, and it's faster than I can even screenshot it. I mean, honestly, I'm just getting more and more stories every single day. First up, rip.eth ended up showing us more and more businesses. I think this is a great way to visualize all the companies that are not just going on chain, but that are picking Ethereum specifically. And you can see the liquidity on Ethereum is by far the #1 chain out of any of the other ones, which is making the large pools of money like JP Morgan and Swift and UBS and BlackRock choose Ethereum because this is extremely important to them. So it actually goes to benefit them even more. Plus, you have the very front-running, fintechs like Vlad Tenev from Robinhood say tokenization will eat the entire global financial system. Thanks for listening. That's all he was talking about. He ended up going to the Token 2049 conference. We don't have that video out just yet. I'm sure that'll be coming out in the next few days, but it's going to be great to see all of the businesses that are not only excited for blockchain, but are developing new products every single day. Now, the new SBET CEO ended up replying to Vlad on that comment and said, everyone is staring at the $4 trillion crypto market and missing the full picture. There's $700 trillion in global financial services waiting to be tokenized and moving on chain. Institutions will choose the most secure, credible, and natural ledger to financialize on. That ledger is Ethereum. If that's true, BMNR is going to skyrocket. But you're starting to see even bigger names than we've ever seen, like the Swift network, saying Swift experiments with on-chain migration using Ethereum's layer 2, Linea. So that is quite exciting. Now they even tweeted about it today. Once again, Swift announces new blockchain ledger with 30 plus banks that are already beginning to use these new products. Now, another claim just ended up coming out. CME Group to launch 24/7 crypto futures and options trading in 2026. Most likely, if you are going to go to a 24/7 type of experience, you have to do that on chain. Crypto runs 24/7. But even if you're not, crypto futures and these sort of products are just going to lead to more transactions, which is going to lead to more gas fees, and then end up burning more Ethereum over time, slowing down the issuance and turning Ethereum into more of a deflationary asset. We'll talk more about that in a second. But FX Nexus ends up natively tokenizing their public shares on Ethereum. You're going to see more and more companies do this. And this is going to allow people to not only buy their stock, accept dividends and all of these things on chain through smart contracts, and also allow them to trade 24/7. Now, it's not all on Ethereum, to be fair. There are some large companies that are doing some things like Telegram here that is pushing out products that allow people to buy stocks through their wallet, which is not on Ethereum. But through crypto and interoperability, a lot of that money that does make its way onto chain will be able to be sent to those same chains. So even just through other networks, it's still important that people are moving to crypto. This is still a bullish sentiment on the idea of Ethereum growing over time. Once again, the use cases will continue to grow. So right now we're seeing a lot of things being built for cross-border payments and treasury and maybe, inflation hedging and these sort of things. But now we're starting to get the real first signs of retail payments with Shopify, tokenized real world assets like what we saw with FG Nexus. We're getting a bunch of new trading features from CME. The features that Ethereum starts to enable really blows up how fast Ethereum can end up growing through the burning of Ethereum, more gas fees, less issuances, and more things like ETFs allowing to be entered into 401ks and, BMNR, these treasuries that continue to acquire more Ethereum. So honestly, there's not a more bullish time for me not to be bullish on Ethereum, but BMNR exclusively. The reason why I think BMNR is going to be the biggest winner is because of how popular it is. The funny thing about these treasuries, the more liquidity that they actually have, the faster that they can end up growing. MicroStrategy, by far the largest. Second largest Bitmine at about half the size. And then, 1/10 the size, you have SharpLink Gaming. So the difference between first and second to the rest of the group, not even close. You can either pick Bitcoin or you can pick Ethereum. And we know the names that are dealing with both, but everything else is small peanuts. And we have to give a lot of that success to the main man, Tom Lee, who just continues to go out of his way to promote and talk about BMNR, talk about Ethereum at some of the largest stages in the world that are promoting Ethereum and tokenization. Same platform and stage that Vlad Tenev was just on to talk about tokenization. Then you also have other companies that are coming out and offering new trading tools to give more exposure to BMNR, like T-Rex's 2x long BMNR daily ETF. You're getting 2x leverage on BMNR. But whenever you buy BMNU, that's actually going to go like that is pegged to BMNR. So you're buying more BMNR by buying BMNU. Okay. You're also seeing this through Rex's BMNR's growth and income ETF. So think about MicroStrategy versus the MSTY, right? The MISTY versus MicroStrategy. So this is just more BMNR exposure, which leads to more MNAV premium, which leads to them acquiring more Ethereum. But you're getting better net asset value per share that you actually have of BMNR. So that's what I have for you guys today. But once again, extremely bullish on BMNR. I cannot stop buying here. And I'm very, very bullish on the idea of tokenizing the entire financial system. It seems to be happening. The Genius Act gave this a massive boost, and the Clarity Act is going to put this into overdrive. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys like these sort of updates, let me know in the comments down below. Consider hitting the subscribe button. But bye for now.